Om Akyanati Miranda Shyakyana Salakaya Sakshur Militanyena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Vanchakalpatarupyascha Kripasindupya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanepyo Vaishnavepyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gora Tuse Namaha. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Lila Chapter 7, The Meeting of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Balabhabata. Verse, let me see. Verse 134. Whatever you might write due to false pride, trying to surpass Sridhar Swami, would carry a contrary purport. Therefore no one would pay attention to it. One who comments on Srimad Bhagavatam, following in the footsteps of Sridhar Swami, will be honored and accepted by everyone. Put forth your explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam, following in the footsteps of Sridhar Swami, giving up your false pride, worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Abandoning your offenses, chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the holy names of the Lord. Then very soon you will achieve shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Balabhabata Acharya requested, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you are actually pleased with me, please accept my invitation once again. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who had descended to deliver the entire universe, accepted the invitation of Balabhabata just to give him happiness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always eager to see everyone in the material world happy. Therefore, sometimes he chastises someone just to purify his heart. When Balabhabata invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, the Lord was very pleased with him. Jagadananda Pandit's pure ecstatic love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very deep. It can be compared to the love of Satyabhama, who always quarreled with Lord Krishna. Jagadananda Pandit was accustomed to provoking loving quarrels with the Lord. There was always some disagreement between them. Gadadhar Pandit's pure ecstatic love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also very deep. It was like that of Rukmini Devi, who was always especially submissive to Krishna. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes desired to see Gadadhar Pandit's affectionate anger, but because of his knowledge of the Lord's opulences, his anger was never invoked. For this purpose, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes showed his apparent anger. Hearing of this anger inspired great fear in the heart of Gadadhar Pandit. Previously, in Krishna Lila, when Lord Krishna joked with Rukmini Devi, she took his words seriously, and fear awoke within her mind. Balabhabata was accustomed to worship the Lord as child Krishna. Therefore he had been initiated into the Bala Gopal mantra and was thus worshipping the Lord. In the association of Gadadhar Pandit, his mind was converted, and he dedicated his mind to worshipping Kishora Gopal, Krishna as a young boy. Balabhabata wanted to be initiated by Gadadhar Pandit, but Gadadhar Pandit refused, saying, "The work of acting as a spiritual master is not possible for me. I am completely dependent. My Lord is Gaurachandra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I cannot do anything independently without his order." My dear Balabhabata, your coming to me is not appreciated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, he sometimes speaks to chastise me. Some days passed, and when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, finally pleased with Balabhabata, accepted his invitation, the Lord sent Swarup Damodar, Jagadananda Pandit and Govinda to call for Gadadhar Pandit. On the way, Swarup Damodar said to Gadadhar Pandit, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to test you, therefore he neglected you. Why did you not retaliate by reproaching him? Why did you fearfully tolerate his criticism? Gadadhar Pandit said, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is completely independent. He is the topmost omniscient personality. It would not look well for me to talk to him as if I were his equal. I can tolerate whatever he says, bearing it upon my head. He will automatically be merciful to me after considering my faults and attributes. After saying this, Gadadhar Pandit went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and fell down crying at the lotus feet of the Lord. Smiling slightly, the Lord embraced him and spoke sweet words to that others would also hear. I wanted to agitate you, the Lord said, but you didn't become agitated. Indeed, you could not say anything in anger. Instead, you tolerated everything. Your mind was not disturbed by my tricks. Rather, you stay fixed in your simplicity. In this way, you have purchased me. No one can describe the characteristics and ecstatic love of Gadadhar Pandit. Therefore, another name for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Gadadhar Prananatha, the life and soul of Gadadhar Pandit. No one can say how merciful the Lord is to Gadadhar Pandit, but people know the Lord as Gadadhara Gauranga, the Lord Gauranga of Gadadhar Pandit. No one can understand the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are like the Ganges, for hundreds and thousands of branches flow from even one of his activities. Gadadhar Pandit is celebrated all over the world for his gentle behavior, his Brahminical attributes, and his steady love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord purified Balabhabata by cleansing him of the mud of false pride. By such activities, the Lord also instructed others. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually always merciful within his heart, but he was sometimes externally negligent of his devotees. We should not be preoccupied with his external feature, however, for if we do so, we shall be vanquished. The pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are very deep. Who can understand them? Only one who has firm, deep devotion to his lotus feet can understand these pastimes. Another day, Gadadhar Pandit invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to dinner. The Lord took prasadam at his house with his personal associates. There, Balabhabata took permission from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his desire to be initiated by Gadadhar Pandit was thus fulfilled. I have thus explained the Lord's meeting with Balabhabata. By hearing of this incident, one can achieve the treasure of love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath Das, always desire their mercy. I, Krishna Das, narrates Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps. Chapter 8. Ramachandra Puri criticizes the Lord. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who reduced his eating due to fear of the criticism of Ramachandra Puri. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the incarnation of the ocean of mercy. His lotus feet are worshipped by demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu, the greatest of mendicants, who bound the entire world with a knot of ecstatic love for God. All glories to Advaita Acharya, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He induced Krishna to descend and thus delivered the entire world. All glories to all the devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is their life and soul. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri performed his various pastimes with his devotees in the waves of love for Krishna. Then a sannyasi named Ramachandra Puri Kosai came to see Paramananda Puri and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Paramananda Puri offered respects at the feet of Ramachandra Puri, and Ramachandra Puri strongly embraced him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also offered obeisances unto Ramachandra Puri, who then embraced him and thus remembered Krishna. The three of them talked about Krishna for some time, and then Jagadananda came and extended an invitation to Ramachandra Puri. A large quantity of the remnants of food from Lord Jagannath was brought in for distribution. Ramachandra Puri ate sumptuously, and then he wanted to find faults in Jagadananda Pandit. After finishing the meal, Ramachandra Puri requested, "My dear Jagadananda, please listen. You eat the food that is left." With great eagerness, Ramachandra Puri seated Jagadananda Pandit and personally served him prasadam. Encouraging him again and again, Ramachandra Puri fed him sumptuously. But when Jagadananda had washed his hands and mouth, Ramachandra Puri began criticizing him. "I have heard," he said, "that the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eat more than necessary. Now I have directly seen that this is true. Feeding a sannyasi too much breaks his regulative principles, for when a sannyasi eats too much, his renunciation is destroyed." The characteristics of Ramachandra Puri was that first he would induce someone to eat more than necessary, and then he would criticize him. Formerly, when Madhavendra Puri was at the last stage of his life, Ramachandra Puri came to where he was staying. Madhavendra Puri was chanting the holy name of Krishna, and sometimes he would cry, "Oh my Lord, I did not get shelter at Mathura." Then Ramachandra Puri was so foolish that he fearlessly dared to instruct his spiritual master. "If you are in full transcendental bliss," he said, "you should now remember only Brahman. Why are you crying?" Hearing this instruction, Madhavendra Puri, greatly angry, rebuked him by saying, "Get out, you sinful rascal." "O my Lord Krishna, I could not reach you, nor could I reach your abode, Mathura. I am dying in my unhappiness, and now this rascal has come to give me more pain. Don't show your face to me. Go anywhere else. If I die seeing your face, I shall not achieve the destination of my life. I am dying without achieving the shelter of Krishna, and therefore I am greatly unhappy. Now this condemned foolish rascal has come to instruct me about Brahman." Ramachandra Puri was thus denounced by Madhavendra Puri. Due to his offense, gradually material desire appeared within him. One who is attached to dry speculative knowledge has no relationship with Krishna. His occupation is criticizing Vaishnavas, thus he is situated in criticism. Ishvara Puri, the spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, performed service to Madhavendra Puri, cleaning up his stool and urine with his own hand. Ishvara Puri was always chanting the holy name and pastimes of Lord Krishna for Madhavendra Puri to hear. In this way, he helped Madhavendra Puri remember the holy name and pastimes of Lord Krishna at the time of death. Pleased with Ishvara Puri, Madhavendra Puri embraced him and gave him the benediction that he would be a great devotee and lover of Krishna. Thus, Ishvara Puri became like an ocean of ecstatic love for Krishna, whereas Ramachandra Puri became a dry speculator and a critic of everyone else. Ishvara Puri received the blessing of Madhavendra Puri, whereas Ramachandra Puri received a rebuke from him. Therefore, these two persons, Ishvara Puri and Ramachandra Puri, are examples of the objects of a great personality's benediction and punishment. Madhavendra Puri instructed the entire world by presenting these two examples. His Divine Grace, Madhavendra Puri, the spiritual master of the entire world, thus distributed ecstatic love for Krishna. While passing away from the material world, he chanted the following verse. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? In this verse, Madhavendra Puri teaches how to achieve ecstatic love for Krishna. By feeling separation from Krishna, one becomes spiritually situated. Madhavendra Puri sowed the seed of ecstatic love for Krishna within this material world and then departed. That seed later became a great tree in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have incidentally described the passing away of Madhavendra Puri. Anyone who hears this must be considered very fortunate. Thus Ramachandra Puri stayed at Jagannath Puri. As is customary for those in the renounced order, he would sometimes stay someplace and then go away. There was no certainty of where Ramachandra Puri would take his meal, for he would do so even uninvited. Nevertheless, he was very particular about keeping account of how others were taking their meals. To invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would cost 320 kodis, small conch shells. This would provide lunch for 3 people, including Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and sometimes Kashishvara and Govinda. Every day the Lord would take his meal at a different place, and if someone was prepared to pay for a meal, the price was fixed at only 4 panans. Ramachandra Puri concerned himself with gathering all sorts of information about how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was situated, including his regulative principles, his lunch, his sleep and his movements. Because Ramachandra Puri was interested only in finding faults, he could not understand the transcendental qualities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His only concern was finding faults, but still he could not find any. At last he found a fault. How can a person in the renounced order eat so many sweetmeats? He said. If one eats sweets, controlling the senses is very difficult. In this way, Ramachandra Puri blasphemed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu before everyone, but nevertheless he would regularly come to see the Lord every day. When they met, the Lord would offer him respectful obeisances, considering him a god-brother of his spiritual master. Ramachandra Puri's business, however, was to search for faults in the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew that Ramachandra Puri was criticizing him before everyone, but whenever Ramachandra Puri came to see him, the Lord offered him respect with great attention. One day, Ramachandra Puri came in the morning to the abode of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Seeing many ants, he said something to criticize the Lord. Last night there was sugar candy here, he said. Therefore ants are wandering about. Alas, this renowned sannyasi is attached to such sense gratification. After speaking in this way, he got up and left. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had heard rumors about Ramachandra Puri blasphemy. Now he directly heard his fanatical accusations. Ants generally crawl about here, there and everywhere, but Ramachandra Puri, imagining faults, criticized Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by alleging that there had been sweetmeats in his room. After hearing this criticism, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doubtful and apprehensive. Therefore he called Govinda and instructed him as follows. From today on, it will be a rule that I shall accept only 1/4 of a pot of Lord Jagannath's prasadam and 5 gandas worth of vegetables. If you bring any more than this, you will not see me here any more. Govinda relayed this message to all the devotees. When they heard it, they felt as if their heads had been struck by thunderbolts. All the devotees condemned Ramachandra Puri, saying, "This sinful man has come here and taken our lives." That day, a Brahmana extended an invitation to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Govinda accepted only 5 gandas worth of vegetables and 1/4 of a pot of rice, the Brahmana, in great despair, struck his head with his hand and cried, "Alas, alas!" Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate only half of the rice and vegetables, and whatever remained was taken by Govinda. Thus both Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Govinda ate only half the food they needed. Because of this, all the other devotees gave up eating. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Govinda and Kashishvara, "You may both take alms elsewhere to fill your bellies." In this way some days passed in great unhappiness. Hearing of all this, Ramachandra Puri went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his obeisances to Ramachandra Puri, worshipping his feet. Then Ramachandra Puri smiled and spoke to the Lord. Ramachandra Puri advised, "It is not the business of a sannyasi to gratify his senses. He should fill his belly some way or other. I have heard that you have cut your eating in half. Indeed, I see that you are skinny. Such dry renunciation is also not the religion of a sannyasi. A sannyasi eats as much as necessary to maintain his body, but he does not enjoy satisfying his senses materially. Thus a sannyasi becomes perfect in his spiritual advancement in knowledge." Lord Krishna said, "My dear Arjuna, one cannot perform mystic yoga if he eats more than necessary or needlessly fasts, sleeps and dreams too much, or does not sleep enough. One should eat and enjoy his senses as much as necessary. One should properly endeavor to execute his duties, and one should regulate his sleep and wakefulness. Thus one can become freed from material pains by executing mystic yoga." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then humbly submitted, "I am just like an ignorant boy, and I am like your disciple. It is my great fortune that you are instructing me." Hearing this, Ramachandra Puri got up and left. He also heard from various sources that all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were eating half as much as usual. The next day, Paramananda Puri and other devotees approached Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great humility and submission. Paramananda Puri said, "My godbrother Ramachandra Puri is by nature a bad critic. If you give up eating because of his words, what will be the profit? It is the nature of Ramachandra Puri that first he lets one eat as much as desired, and if one does not eat more than necessary, with great attention he makes him eat more. In this way he induces one to eat more than necessary, and then he directly criticizes him, saying, 'You eat so much. How much money do you have in your treasury?' Also, by inducing sannyasis to eat so much, you spoil their religious principles. Therefore I can understand that you have no advancement." It is Ramachandra Puri's business to inquire always about how others are eating and conducting their daily affairs. The two kinds of activities rejected in the revealed scriptures constitute his daily affairs. One should see that because of the meeting of material nature and the living entity, the universe is acting uniformly. Thus one should neither praise nor criticize the characteristics or activities of others. Of the two rules, Ramachandra Puri obeys the first by abandoning praise, but although he knows that the second is more prominent, he neglects it by criticizing others. Jai Sri Sri Guru Gauranga Radha Kiri Daiju. Ki Jai. Between the former rule and the latter rule, the latter is more important. Even when there are hundreds of good qualities, a critic does not consider them. Rather, he attempts by some trick to point out a fault in those attributes. One should not therefore follow the principles of Ramachandra Puri. Nevertheless, I have to say something against him, because he is making our hearts unhappy. Why have you given up proper eating due to his criticism of Ramachandra Puri? Please accept invitations as before. This is the request of us all. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "Why are you all angry at Ramachandra Puri? He is expounding the natural principles of sannyas life. Why are you accusing him? For a sannyasi to indulge in satisfying the tongue is a great offense. The duty of a sannyasi is to eat only as much as needed to keep body and soul together." When they all requested very fervently that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu take a full meal, he still would not do so. Instead, he responded to their request by accepting half as much as usual. The cost for the food needed to invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was fixed at 2 panas of kodis, 60 conch shells, and that food would be taken by 2 men and sometimes 3. When a Brahmana, at whose home an invitation could not be accepted, invited the Lord, he would pay 2 panas of conch shells to purchase the prasadam. When a Brahmana, at whose home an invitation could be accepted, invited him, the Brahmana would purchase part of the prasadam and cook the rest at home. Even on a day when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was invited to dine by others, if Gadadhar Pandit, Bhagavan Acharya or Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya invited him, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had no independence. He would accept their invitation as they desired. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually descended to give happiness to the devotees. Thus he behaved in whatever way fit the time and circumstances. Because of his full independence, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes behaved like a common man and sometimes manifested his godly opulence. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes accepted Ramachandra Puri as his master and considered himself a servant, and sometimes the Lord, not caring for him, would see him as being just like straw. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu behaved exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, beyond the restrictions of anyone's intelligence. He did whatever he liked, but all his activities were very beautiful. Thus Ramachandra Puri stayed for some days at Nilachal, Jagannath Puri. Then he left to visit various holy places of pilgrimage. The devotees considered Ramachandra Puri to be like a great burden on their heads. When he left Jagannath Puri, everyone felt extremely happy, as if a great stone burden had suddenly fallen from their heads to the ground. After his departure, everything was happy once again. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted invitations as usual and led congregational chanting and dancing. Everyone else also accepted prasadam without hindrances. If one's spiritual master rejects him, one becomes so fallen that he, like Ramachandra Puri, commits offenses even to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not consider the offenses of Ramachandra Puri, for the Lord considered him his spiritual master. However, his character instructed everyone about the result of offending the spiritual master. The character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is full of nectar. Hearing about it is pleasing to the ear and mind. I write about the character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. O readers, please hear with attention, for thus you will easily receive ecstatic love for the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Jai Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Anchalila chapter 8. Ramachandra Puri criticizes the Lord. Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Silesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Gurudev. Hari Yadaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopala Govindayam Srimadhusuda Giridhari Gopinath Madanamaha Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Gadadara Sivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Rupa Sanatan Tatara Guna Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna Ejai Kusai Puri Charana Banda Jai Te Vignana Savista Pura Ejai Kusai Jamui Taradas Dansavara Parare Numura Panchakras Samdira Charana Sivi Bhakta Sane Bahas Janane Mo Abhilas Ejai Kosai Jabe Braja Kolabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Kohila Prakas Anam Jai Bola Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Sri Guru Vaishnava Pare Machayama, Sri Guru Vaishnava Padma Koriya, Hari Nam Sankirtana Kore Narotamadas, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo. Jai. Let's see, your phone is ringing. My phone? Jai, Krishna Kasi Bhakti, Jai Maharaj Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Sri Jai Gurna Ki Jai, Jai Krishna Kasi Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Jai Krishna Kasi Bhakti Rakakshira Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Jai Bhagavan Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai, Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Sabashara Sri Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, Sabashara Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Guru Gopinath Shankund Radha Kumakiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Rama Yamuna Chu Ki Jai, Rantavachima Bhagavatam Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai, Sri Narayana Dham Ki Jai, Sri Mayur Dham Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sri Purushottama Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Chu Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Vastam Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Islam Chatti Ki Jai, Samatagora